Shut up, compressor. Okay, so it is time to start our build work on Tamiya's P-47M. Now we're going to start in the cockpit as usual, but before that, I've jumped ahead just a little bit and gone ahead and installed the dorsal spine and tail. This is a split piece that you can see kind of sits right in there on this sort of deck. And when you bring all of this together, voila. Now this may require a little touch of filling right in here, but I'm prioritizing fit along the fuselage as opposed to right up top. And then right in here is where the tail fillet goes. This is the single hardest piece to pick up ever designed. Dear God. Now, this is all very rough, but it sits right in there like so. This is not the actual one we'll be using. Fireball had the sort of thicker, broader fillet that has more of like a steep cliff as opposed to this long slope to it, but you get the idea. So, we're going to set all this aside for now and ponder what to do about the cockpit. Now, this is the Ares resin cockpit, which looks okay. It honestly doesn't look as potentially amazing as some others I've seen of theirs. But for your consideration, here is the Tamiya Cockpit. I mean, honestly, aside from some cabling running off the throttle quadrant up to the front there and off of this big old fuse box, which is very, very easy to add, I really don't see much putting the putting the Ares P-47 cockpit above the Tamiya one. They're very, very close. And considering how close they are, I think I'm going to stick with the Tamiya one because it will definitely fit inside the fuselage. Now, we've got a couple things to consider here. First is the need to add a little bit of cable work right in here, you know, again from the fuse box and from throttle body. And then back here, the Ares has the same problem where the seat on the P-47, basically, if you'll indulge me for a moment. Come on, dingus. So the seat for a P-47 sits on this little frame. It's got feet in the floorboard, and then it sort of connects to that little crossbar right up top. Now, in the real thing, the pilot harness is actually anchored to the back of this frame, and it loops over that top bar. So when you see seats, you know, aftermarket seats, like, where the hell did I put it? There we go. Like this quick boost seat that has the belts attached, but the belts just go looping over the seat. That's not what actually happened. The seats actually, or the belts actually loop over that crossbar. And that's pretty tough to do if the crossbar is molded onto the rear bulkhead. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this. And because these hopefully have this little sort of scallop section right there, I'm going to go ahead and add a bar in there that we can use. And I'm going to try to use metal just for some added strength, but we can always go styrene if we have to. Okay, so I've cut a piece of brass tubing that exactly matches the width of this handy little crossbar. Now we need to install it just like so. I think for this task, I am going to trust in some handy cyanoacrylate. Actually, I'm going to try out this new shit that I got from Ammo. Some black CA. Why not? So I basically just put a little tiny dab right there. Okay. Set that down. And we'll just let that set for a little bit of time. Next up, we get to get rid of this thing. So not too shabby, but we're gonna want to get the chisel out and remove the last of that. So there we go, like it was never there. All right, next, let's go ahead and take a look at how the Aries set is organized. These wires coming off and the cables coming off of the throttle quadrant and the fuse box. Okay. Nothing super fancy there. I think for this, instead of tubing, it's going to make sense to probably use some lead wire. Okay, so I drilled a hole in the side of the box here and installed a piece of tubing. It's actually the same tubing that we used on the seat frame. Because if you look right here, there's a thicker portion right here before you see all the wiring start. So we're going to replicate that. And while that sets up, I've gone ahead and grabbed some 26 gauge red brass wire that we're going to use for the throttle linkage. Okay. Make sure I've got the length right before I start doing this. And it's important to remember that basically everything in front of this notch is going to be behind the instrument panel and going to be very buried. Now, in a P-47, you don't have the instrument panel combing, hiding everything back here, but you do have a nest of wires running off the back of it, and you've got the windscreen, and you've got the fuselage kind of going like this. So between all those different things, you're not going to be able to see much. So getting it close is important, but you don't have to get it exact. Okay, here we go. I feel like any more than 3, we're going to start risking some serious thickness issues. So there we go. Throttle linkages in the bag. See what we can do with some of this superfine lead wire. I'm hoping we can fit 2 pieces into that little tiny piece of tubing, but it is going to be close. Sweet, we got it. So I do not have any debonder around, but I do have IPA. Let's see if that can... There we go. We got some fun little cabling right there. Throttle quadrant. Everything's looking good. What can we do on this side of the aisle? We've got most of the wiring in place. But I think we can add a little bit more. So looking closely at the Aries piece here, we can see cabling running from, I don't know why cabling be, oh, that's just an extra thing. Okay, screw that, never mind. So we've got cabling running behind the map case, cabling running down here, and then off of these boxes and up to the cockpit sill. Shouldn't be too big a deal. So this already has most of the main trunk cabling going on. What I'm going to do, this is my nice little trick to aid some of this stuff, is use an airbrush needle to essentially poke just a couple quick guide holes for our very, very thin lead wire. Just enough to locate it. Maybe I need to get a drill bit. Pause. Drilled a larger hole in there. Come around here, do the same right here. A little bit more depth to actually hold that shit in place. First, we're going to make sure that it fits that hole. Oh yeah, fits it nicely. sit for a minute. All right, then once that sets up, we can go ahead and kind of bend up the edge and cut it so that it fits perfectly. Make sure that is all hunky-dory. Take a little bit of accelerator. Plop it on there. Let's go ahead and the same on that side. And what the hell, since this black slow dry stuff is legitimately slow, there we go. Okay, so I finished up the initial prep work for the P-47 cockpit. We've got the main floor plate, no real changes here. This thing is pretty much good to go. For the seat, I'm using the Tamiya kit frame. We've added a new crossbar here out of brass tubing and the Aries resin seat, which is far, far superior to the kit plastic. So that is also ready to go, and I've also gone ahead and just glued that in place. That's good to go. Rudders, I'm just going to use the kit rudders. They're fine. Got a little wheel here. The Aries set doesn't really add anything to this, so I'm going to go with preference of some depth over the thinness of photo etch. For the control stick, I'm going to be using the one that comes with the Aries. The Tamiya one is good, but the actual column of this control stick is a little bit thinner, and so I think that kind of elevates it just enough. Move these guys out of frame so that we're not fucking with the focus. On the starboard cockpit wall, we've already added the lead wire in there. The rest of this is good to go. On the port side, we've got the throttle linkages, and we've got that wiring coming off the box there. I've also added these little photo etch dials. Come on. And so those will provide a nice little kick of detail, and I've also stolen the main throttle quadrant off of the Aries set, mainly because it's already got these grooves in it. Now, once this is painted, I'll be adding in the different throttle levers, but I want to get this done and be able to lay some sort of decal in here to provide the illusion of all the various markings that go on that. Let's see, what else have we got? So we've got the headrest here. I'm pulling this out of the Aries set as well, and I've got a little dispenser of these removable glue dots that are amazing for holding little parts like that in place. And then finally, scooch on out of here. Finally, we've got the K14 Gun Sight, which is a nice little assembly of photo etch and resin. There is a clear piece of acetate that will also go on here, but that is obviously going to come after painting. This is good enough for now. Now, why is there no instrument panel in view here? Mainly because I've decided to go with one of the Edward look panels because they make one specific to the M, and it's just literally not in yet. So next for the fun journey here is to go ahead and prime these parts with some Stynylrez. Now I'm choosing Stynylrez because A, it can hose on and kind of get in the nooks and crannies of these things. B, it tends to work really, really well with photo etch. So I'm going to zoom out here, throw on a glove so I'm not painting my hand black, and we'll get some priming done.